You people think you can just take whatever you want." Cassandra's voice shattered the hushed elegance of the cabin, her face contorted in a sneer that marred her immaculate makeup. "I asked you a simple question," Talia said, her voice terrifyingly calm, though her cheek burned. Smack. The sound was sickeningly crisp, echoing off the mahogany bulkheads. The cabin froze. Champagne flutes stopped mid-air. "Don't you dare speak back to me!" Cassandra shrieked, hand raised for a second strike. "You are off this plane the second we land! Do you hear me? Gone!" Talia slowly touched her stinging cheek, her eyes turning to cold steel. "You're right, Cassandra. One of us is leaving, but it won't be me." The rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling glass of JFK's Terminal 4, blurring the runway lights into streaks of molten gold and red. It was a miserable Tuesday evening in November, the kind of weather that made seasoned travelers' groans and flight crews check their union contracts for overtime clauses. Talia Monroe stood near the gate of Flight 882 bound for London Heathrow, a cup of lukewarm bodega coffee in her hand. To the casual observer, she was nobody. She wore an oversized charcoal gray hoodie that swallowed her petite frame, black leggings that had seen better days, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore zero makeup, revealing the exhaustion of a woman who had spent the last 48 hours negotiating a hostile takeover of a lithium mine in Nevada. But appearances, as they say in the high-stakes world of venture capital, were the most expensive lies of all. The hoodie was a limited-run cashmere blend from Loro Piana, costing more than most people's first cars. The leggings were custom-fitted prototypes from her own athletic wear line, engineered for deep vein thrombosis prevention. And the woman herself? Talia Monroe wasn't just a passenger. As of signed documents finalized at 3 a.m. that morning, she was the majority shareholder of Royal Vanguard Airways. She literally owned the metal bird sitting at the gate, a brand-new Airbus A350-1000, outfitted with the airline's highly touted Sovereign-class suites. She was flying incognito. The board of directors knew she was coming to London for the annual shareholder meeting, but they didn't know she was flying commercial, and certainly not on her own metal. She wanted to see the product. She wanted to feel the service. She wanted to know if the rumors about slipping standards and elitist crew behavior were true. "Zone 1 boarding," the gate agent announced, his voice crackling with static. "Sovereign class and Diamond Medallion members only." Talia picked up her worn leather duffel bag, vintage Hermes, beaten to perfection, and joined the queue. Ahead of her stood a man who radiated new money. He was wearing a suit that was too shiny, a watch that was too big, and cologne that arrived 5 seconds before he did. This was Edward Langford. Talia recognized him from the tabloids, a real estate mogul whose ego occupied more square footage than his developments. Behind the desk at the Jett Bridge entrance stood the flight crew, greeting the VIPs. The woman checking boarding passes was tall, blonde, and possessed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her name tag read, Cassandra Price, Chief Purser. Edward Langford approached the desk. Cassandra's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Mr. Langford, so good to see you again," she cooed, scanning his pass. "We have your favorite scotch loaded, the Macallan 25 just for you." "Excellent, Cassandra. Excellent," Edward boomed, barely acknowledging her existence as he breezed past. Talia stepped up next. She held out her phone with the digital boarding pass. Cassandra's smile vanished instantly. She looked Talia up and down, her gaze lingering on the hoodie and the coffee cup. It wasn't just a look of dismissal. It was a look of active disgust, a microaggression so sharp it could cut glass. "Zone 1 is for sovereign class only, ma'am," Cassandra said, her voice dropping an octave, losing all its warmth. "Economy boarding begins in 20 minutes. Please step aside." Talia didn't move. She kept her phone extended. "I know. I'm in seat 1A. Cassandra let out a short, derisive scoff. She snatched the phone from Talia's hand, not to scan it, but to inspect it, as if looking for evidence of forgery. She squinted at the screen, then back at Talia. 1A? That's a reserved corporate suite. Cassandra narrowed her eyes. How did you get this ticket? Did you use an employee pass, a buddy pass? I bought it, Talia said, her voice level. Is there a problem? The problem, Cassandra said, leaning over the podium, is that we have a dress code for sovereign class. We try to maintain a certain atmosphere. She gestured vaguely at Talia's attire. This isn't a Greyhound bus. Talia felt the first prickle of anger, but she tamped it down. This was exactly what she was here to see. I checked the carriage contract, Cassandra. The dress code prohibits swimwear and offensive slogans. I'm wearing neither. Scan the pass. Cassandra bristled at the use of her first name. She looked ready to call security, her finger hovering over the phone. But the line behind Talia was growing. Narcus Ravensdale, a man Talia knew by reputation as a ruthless corporate cleaner, was standing right behind her, checking his Patek Philippe watch with impatience. Is there a holdup? Narcus asked. His voice was like grinding gravel, deep, dangerous, and authoritative. Cassandra flinched. She didn't want a scene with a man who looked like he could buy the airport. She angrily tapped the scanner with Talia's phone. It beeped green. Fine, Cassandra hissed, shoving the phone back at Talia. But don't expect to get comfortable. I'll be watching you. One toe out of line, one disturbance to our actual paying customers, and I'll have the marshals waiting at Heathrow. I'll keep that in mind, Talia said softly. She walked down the Jett bridge, the damp chill of the tunnel doing little to cool the fire starting to burn in her chest. The inspection had begun, and Royal Vanguard Airways was already failing. The interior of the A350 was a marvel of modern engineering. The Sovereign-class cabin featured just 6 fully enclosed suites, arranged in a 1-1-1 configuration. The lighting was a soft, calming violet, and the air smelled faintly of white tea and bergamot. Talia found Suite 1A. It was a sanctuary of leather and walnut wood, featuring a sliding door for privacy, a 32-inch 4K screen, and a seat that converted into a full lie-flat double bed. It was a product worth the $18,000 one-way price tag. But a product is only as good as the people who deliver it. Talia stowed her bag and sat down. She waited. Standard operating procedure for Royal Vanguard dictated that a pre-departure drink be offered within 2 minutes of settling in. 5 minutes passed. Across the aisle in 1B, Edward Langford was already on his second glass of champagne. Cassandra was practically sitting in his lap, laughing at a joke that wasn't funny, her hand resting lingeringly on his shoulder. "Oh, Mr. Langford, you're terrible," she giggled. "I'll make sure the galley keeps the caviar chilled for you." In seat 2A, a young woman named Fiona Hartley looked nervous. She was clutching a rosary, her knuckles white. She looked like she had scraped every penny together for this flight, perhaps for a medical emergency or a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Cassandra walked past Fiona without a glance, heading straight for the galley. Talia pressed the call button. A moment later, Cassandra appeared at the door of 1A. She didn't enter. She stood in the aisle, blocking the view, her face a mask of annoyance. "Yes? What is it?" "I haven't been offered a drink," Talia said politely. "I'd like some sparkling water, please, with lime." "We're busy preparing for takeoff," Cassandra snapped. "The bar is closed." "You just served the gentleman in 1B, Talia pointed out, gesturing to Edward's full flute. "Mr. Langford is a Diamond Medallion member and a frequent flyer," Cassandra lied smoothly. "We prioritize our loyal customers. You'll get water when we're in the air, if we have time." She turned on her heel and walked away. Talia pulled out her phone and opened the Notes app. Infraction 1. Discrimination based on appearance. Infraction 2. Violation of service protocol. Infraction 3. Lying to a passenger. The plane pushed back. The safety video played. a sleek production featuring the airline's CEO, a man Talia had fired via email 3 hours ago, though he didn't know it yet. The irony was palpable. As the plane roared down the runway and lifted into the dark sky, Talia watched the lights of New York recede. She loved flying. She loved the physics of it, the miracle of heavy metal conquering gravity. But tonight, the atmosphere inside the cabin was heavier than the air outside. Once they reached cruising altitude, the service began in earnest. The smell of heated nuts and expensive steak filled the cabin. Captain Benedict Kingsley's voice came over the intercom. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've reached our cruising altitude of 39,000 feet. We're expecting a smooth ride to London. Please relax and enjoy the world-class service of Royal Vanguard." "World-class," Talia muttered. Cassandra moved through the cabin with a trolley. She served Edward a lavish 3-course meal, laying out the linen tablecloth with the precision of a surgeon. She joked with Narcus Ravensdale in 1C, though he seemed less receptive to her charms, responding with monosyllabic grunts. When she reached Talia, she didn't lay a tablecloth. She simply placed a tray down with a thud. It wasn't the Sovereign class menu. It was the crew meal, a lukewarm chicken wrap wrapped in plastic. "We ran out of the filet mignon," Cassandra said, not making eye contact. "This is all that's left." Talia looked at the wrap. "There are 6 seats in this cabin, 2 are empty. You loaded 6 fillets. I checked the manifest." Cassandra leaned in, her perfume overpowering. "Listen to me, honey. I don't know who you slept with to get this seat or whose miles you stole, but you don't belong here. You're making the other guests uncomfortable with your hovering. Eat the wrap or starve, I don't care." From across the aisle, Edward Langford chuckled. "Everything all right, Cassandra? Is the riffraff causing trouble?" "Just a little confusion about the menu, Mr. Langford," Cassandra called out, her voice sweet as syrup. "Some people aren't used to fine dining." Talia felt a vein in her temple throb. She took a deep breath. She wasn't just angry. She was heartbroken. She had built her empire on the philosophy that dignity was a universal right. To see her own company twisting that into a weapon of class warfare was physically painful. She didn't touch the wrap. She opened her laptop, a custom-built machine worth more than the entire galley, and began to access the airline's internal HR database via the onboard Wi-Fi. She had admin privileges. She started pulling Cassandra Price's file. Cassandra Price, 12 years of service, 3 previous complaints of attitude, all dismissed by regional management, commendations for upselling duty-free items. Talia began to type an email, not to customer service, but to the Global Director of Operations. Subject line, immediate restructuring. But she needed more. She needed undeniable proof. She needed the rope with which Cassandra would hang herself. 3 hours into the flight, the cabin lights were dimmed. Most passengers were asleep. Edward Langford was snoring loudly, a sound that cut through the noise-canceling headphones. Talia was awake, reviewing the quarterly earnings reports. She was thirsty. She had never received her water. She stood up to stretch her legs and head to the galley. As she passed seat 2A, she heard a soft sobbing. It was Fiona Hartley. The young woman was curled into a ball, shaking. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, a panic attack. Talia knelt beside the suite. "Hey," she whispered softly, "are you okay?" Fiona looked up, her eyes wide with terror. I can't breathe. It's too tight. The air. I need water." "It's okay," Talia said soothingly. "I'll get you some water. Just breathe with me. In, out." Talia stood up and walked briskly to the forward galley. The curtain was drawn. She pushed it aside. Cassandra was sitting on a jump seat, scrolling through her phone, laughing at something on the screen. Another flight attendant, a junior named Sarah, was polishing silverware. "Excuse me," Talia said. Cassandra jumped, clutching her chest. When she saw it was Talia, her face hardened into a scowl. "You are not allowed in the galley. It's a sterile flight deck area." "The passenger in 2A is having a panic attack," Talia said urgently. "She needs water, and I think you should check on her. Do you have oxygen on standby?" Cassandra rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. She's been whining since we took off. Probably just wants free upgrades. Go back to your seat." "She is hyperventilating," Talia said, stepping further into the galley. "Give me a bottle of water. Now." "I told you to leave." Cassandra stood up, blocking Talia. "You are aggressive. You are threatening a crew member. That is a federal offense. I am asking for water for a sick passenger." Talia raised her voice slightly, frustration finally cracking her composure. "You don't tell me how to do my job." Cassandra poked Talia in the chest with a manicured finger. "You think because you're in a fancy seat you can order me around? You're nothing. You're a fraud." Talia swatted the finger away instinctively. "Do not touch me." The junior flight attendant, Sarah, looked terrified. "Cassie, maybe we should just—" "Shut up, Sarah," Cassandra yelled. She turned back to Talia, her face red. "You assaulted me. You hit my hand." "I defended myself," Talia said coldly. "Now move." Talia reached past Cassandra to grab a bottle of Evian from the counter. Cassandra snapped. She grabbed Talia's wrist, her nails digging into the skin. "Put it down! That is company property! You are stealing!" Talia yanked her arm back, the bottle flying from her hand and hitting the floor. "Are you insane? It's water!" The commotion woke the cabin. Edward Langford groaned. "What is that racket?" Narcus Ravensdale appeared at the galley curtain, his massive frame filling the space. "What is happening here?" Cassandra saw her audience. She immediately shifted into victim mode. Tears sprung to her eyes with impressive speed. "She's drunk!" Cassandra cried, pointing a shaking finger at Talia. "She came in here demanding more alcohol, and when I refused, she attacked me. She tried to steal from the cart." Talia stared at her, stunned by the audacity of the lie. "That is an absolute fabrication. I am trying to help the woman in 2A. "Liar!" Cassandra screamed. She stepped forward, invading Talia's personal space, using her height to intimidate. "You are trash! You are a violent ghetto—" "Careful," Talia warned, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Choose your next word very carefully, Cassandra." Cassandra didn't listen. The adrenaline, the bias, the years of getting away with treating people like dirt, it all culminated in a moment of pure, unadulterated rage. "You people think you can just take whatever you want." Cassandra's voice shattered the hushed elegance of the cabin. "I asked you a simple question," Talia said, her voice terrifyingly calm, though her cheek burned with anticipation of what was coming. Smack! Cassandra's hand connected with Talia's face. It wasn't a playful tap. It was a full-force slap driven by malice. The sound was sickeningly crisp, echoing off the mahogany bulkheads. The cabin froze. Champagne flutes stopped mid-air. Even Edward Langford sat up, his mouth agape. Talia's head snapped to the side. The sting was immediate, hot and sharp. For a second, the only sound was the hum of the engines. "Don't you dare speak back to me!" Cassandra shrieked, realizing she had crossed a line but doubling down to protect herself. "You are off this plane the second we land, bitch. Do you hear me? Gone! I will have you arrested!" Talia slowly turned her head back. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She touched her stinging cheek and then she smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a smile that promised total scorched earth destruction. "You're right, Cassandra," Talia said, her voice steady, carrying the weight of $1 billion empire behind it. "One of us is leaving, but it won't be me." She looked at Narcus, who was staring at Cassandra with a look of pure disbelief. "Mr. Ravensdale," Talia said, knowing exactly who he was now. "I believe you are recording?" Narcus held up his phone, the camera lens black and unblinking. "Every second of it, ma'am." "Good," Talia said. She smoothed her hoodie. "Captain Kingsley needs to come out here. Now." Cassandra laughed, a shrill, hysterical sound. The captain? He doesn't talk to passengers like you. Sit down before I have you restrained. Talia reached into her pocket and pulled out a small black titanium card. It wasn't a credit card. It was an access key, a master override for Royal Vanguard systems issued only to the board of directors and the owner. She held it up. The light caught the gold embossing. T. Monroe, Chairman. I'm not asking as a passenger, Cassandra, Talia said, her voice ringing with authority. I'm asking as the woman who signs your paycheck. Get the captain. The silence that followed Talia's declaration was heavier than the G-force of takeoff. The black titanium card in her hand seemed to suck the light out of the room. Cassandra stared at the card. Her brain was misfiring, trying to reconcile the image of the woman in the hoodie with the object in her hand. That's a fake, she stammered, though her voice lacked its previous conviction. You printed that off the internet. You're a fraud. Sarah, Talia said, shifting her gaze to the terrified junior flight attendant cowering by the coffee maker. Go to the cockpit. Tell Captain Kingsley that code Oscar Mike 1 has been initiated in the forward galley. Use exactly those words. Sarah froze, looking between her boss and the passenger. Don't you move, Sarah, Cassandra barked. She's crazy. Code Oscar Mike 1 is a hijacking protocol. You want to get us shot down? It is not a hijacking protocol, Talia corrected, her tone professorial. It stands for Owner Manager 1. It indicates the presence of the majority shareholder on board during an emergency. If you had read the updated operations manual sent out last Tuesday, you would know that. Cassandra's face went pale. She hadn't read the manual. She had deleted the email, thinking it was just more corporate fluff. Sarah, Talia said again, softer this time. Go. Sarah bolted. She disappeared behind the cockpit door. Cassandra tried to laugh, but it came out as a dry choke. You're bluffing. You think you can scare me? I know the owner. It's some old white guy named Henderson or something. Richard Henderson was the CEO, Talia said, taking a step forward. Cassandra instinctively took a step back, hitting the counter. I fired Richard at 2:45 p.m. EST today for gross negligence and failing to address the systemic culture of bias in this company, a culture you seem determined to embody. The cockpit door clicked open. Captain Benedict Kingsley emerged. He was a man of 50, with silver hair and the weary eyes of someone who had flown everything from cargo planes in the Andes to this flying palace. He looked annoyed. What is going on out here? He demanded, adjusting his cap. Sarah is rambling about codes and owners. Cassandra, why is there shouting? Cassandra lunged toward him, grabbing his arm. Captain, thank God! This woman... She pointed a shaking finger at Talia. She is violent. She assaulted me. She's drunk. She's claiming to be the owner. You need to restrain her. Use the zip ties. Captain Kingsley looked at Talia. He took in the hoodie, the leggings, the messy bun. Then he looked at her face. He paused. He looked closer. Benedict Kingsley was one of the few pilots who actually paid attention to the business news. He had seen the memo about the acquisition. He had seen the photo of the reclusive tech billionaire who had just bought the airline, a woman known for her youth and her brilliance. His eyes drifted to the titanium card in her hand, then back to her cheek, which was now puffing up, a bright red handprint clearly visible against her dark skin. Good evening, Captain Kingsley, Talia said. I apologize for the disturbance. I am Talia Monroe. The captain's posture changed instantly. He didn't bow, but he straightened up, a military reflex. Ms. Monroe, we weren't expecting you. Clearly, Talia said dryly. She's lying, Benny, Cassandra shrieked. Look at her. She's a nobody. Cassandra, silence, the captain ordered, his voice whipping like a lash. He looked at Talia's cheek. Did a crew member strike you, ma'am? She slapped me, Talia said calmly, after refusing to provide water for a hyperventilating passenger and accusing me of theft. She was stealing water, Cassandra yelled. She was getting water for the girl in 2A who was having a panic attack. A deep voice rumbled from the cabin. Narcus Ravensdale stepped fully into the light of the galley. He held up his phone. "I have it all on video, Captain. The refusal of service, the aggression, the slap. It was unprovoked assault." Captain Kingsley looked at Narcus, then at Cassandra. The color drained from Cassandra's face completely. She knew who Narcus was. Everyone knew Narcus. If he said it happened, it happened. "Cassandra," the captain said, his voice dangerously low. "Did you strike a passenger?" She touched me first. I was defending the aircraft," Cassandra pleaded, but her eyes were darting around like a trapped animal. "I asked you a question," Kingsley roared. "Did you strike this woman?" Cassandra crumbled. I lost my temper. She was being difficult. She didn't belong here. Look at her." The captain closed his eyes for a second, exhaling a breath of pure frustration. He reached for his radio. "Sarah, come here." Sarah appeared, trembling. "Cassandra is relieved of duty effective immediately," Kingsley said. "She is to be escorted to the crew rest bunks. She is not to speak to any passengers. She is not to enter the galley. If she resists, we will restrain her." "You can't do this to me!" Cassandra screamed, tears streaming down her face, ruining her mascara. "I'm the chief purser. I run this cabin. You can't listen to this thug." "That thug," Kingsley said, pointing at Talia, "signs my paycheck, and as of today she signs yours, or rather she did." Talia stepped forward, looking Cassandra dead in the eye. "I want your badge. I want your scarf. And I want you out of my sight." Cassandra looked at the captain, hoping for a reprieve. He just stared at her. Slowly, with shaking hands, she unpinned her gold wings she had worn for 12 years. She unknotted the silk scarf with the Royal Vanguard logo. She dropped them into Talia's outstretched hand. "This isn't over," Cassandra whispered venomously as she passed Talia. "I have a union. I have lawyers." "I have the video," Talia replied. "And I have your personnel file. Go." Sarah escorted a sobbing, broken Cassandra to the back of the plane. Talia let out a breath she felt she had been holding for an hour. She looked at the captain. "Captain, we have a medical situation in 2A. I need oxygen and the first aid kit." "I'll handle it, ma'am," Kingsley said. "Please take your seat. Let me—" "No," Talia said, tying her hair back tighter. "Sarah is shaken up. You need to fly the plane. I'm certified in first aid. I'll handle the cabin." You want to work the cabin?" Kingsley asked, bewildered. "Ms. Monroe, you own the airline." "Exactly," Talia said, picking up the bottle of water from the floor where it had fallen. "And right now, my airline is failing its passengers. I'm going to fix it." Talia Monroe, billionaire tech mogul and aviation tycoon, walked into the Sovereign-class cabin carrying a bottle of Evian and a portable oxygen tank. She knelt beside Suite 2A. Fiona Hartley was still gasping, her face pale and clammy. "Fiona?" Talia said softly. "I'm back. I have the water." Fiona looked up, eyes swimming. I heard screaming. Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine," Talia lied smoothly. She cracked the water bottle. "Here, small sips." She helped Fiona drink. She set up the oxygen mask, placing it gently over the young woman's nose and mouth. "Just breathe naturally. The oxygen will help the tingling in your fingers." Talia sat on the ottoman of Fiona's suite, holding her hand, rubbing her knuckles to bring circulation back. For 20 minutes, she didn't move. She wasn't a CEO. She was just a human being helping another human being. Across the aisle, Edward Langford was fuming. He had watched the scene in the galley from his seat, but he hadn't heard everything. He only saw his favorite flight attendant being marched away like a criminal by the help. "Excuse me," Edward shouted, snapping his fingers. "Excuse me! You!" Talia looked up from Fiona's side. "Yes, Mr. Langford?" "Where is Cassandra? I want a refill on my scotch, and she's the only one who knows how to pour it properly. Why was she sent away? Cassandra is unavailable, Talia said coldly. Sarah will be with you shortly. I don't want Sarah. I want Cassandra. Edward blustered, his face flushing red. This is outrageous. I paid $20,000 for this seat, and I expect continuity of service. I'm going to file a complaint against you. You're the one who caused all this trouble, aren't you? With your hoodlum attire. Talia stood up. She ensured Fiona was stable, then walked over to Edward's suite. She leaned against the partition, looking down at him. Mr. Langford, she said, you made your money in commercial real estate, didn't you? Langford Towers in Miami? Edward blinked, surprised she knew. Yes. What of it? I own the mortgage on Langford Towers, Talia said casually. My holding company bought the debt package from Deutsche Bank last week. Edward's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. What? And I know you're currently trying to restructure that debt because you're over-leveraged, Talia continued, her voice devoid of emotion. Now, I am going to ask you to be quiet, drink your scotch, and let the remaining crew do their jobs. If I hear one more word of disrespect toward the staff or any other passenger, I will call my asset managers and tell them to foreclose. Do we understand each other? Edward Langford shrank into his seat. He looked like a deflated balloon. The arrogance evaporated, replaced by the primal fear of a man realizing he was swimming with a shark. Yes, of course, he squeaked. Good. Talia turned away. She went to the galley. Sarah was there, looking like she was about to vomit from anxiety. Sarah, Talia said gently. Sarah jumped. Ms. Monroe, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I should have said something to Cassie, but she's my senior, and she writes my evaluations and— Breathe, Talia commanded. She put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. You are not in trouble. You were in an impossible position, but I need you to step up now. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, ma'am. Good. First, get a cold compress for my face. Then, I want you to go to the main cabin and check on the economy crew. Tell them everything is fine, but the purser is indisposed. Then come back here and serve dinner to Miss Hartley. She needs something warm and comforting. Soup, if we have it. Yes, Miss Monroe. Sarah scrambled to get an ice pack. Talia took the ice pack and held it to her cheek. She walked back into the cabin. Narcus Ravensdale was watching her. He had put his phone away. He nodded at the empty seat across from him, 1D. Sit, he said. It wasn't a request. Talia sat. She was exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a throbbing headache and a stinging face. You handled that well, Narcus said. Most people would have grounded the plane. I have 300 people back there who need to get to London, Talia said, wincing as the ice touched her skin. I'm not going to ruin their trips because of one bad employee. One bad employee? Narcus scoffed. She's a symptom, Talia. You know that. I've been flying Vanguard for 10 years. It's gotten worse every year. The elitism, the racism, it trickles down from the top. I know, Talia admitted. That's why I bought it, to burn it down and rebuild it. You started the fire tonight, Narcus grinned. That video, it's going to be viral before we touch down. I have a direct line to CNN, you know. Don't release it yet, Talia said. Narcus raised an eyebrow. Why? She assaulted you. She deserves to be famous. She will be, Talia said grimly. But on my terms. I want the investigation finished before the court of public opinion starts. I want to know who hired her. I want to know who promoted her despite the complaints. I want the whole chain of command. Narcus studied her. You're not just looking for justice. You're looking for a purge. I'm looking for excellence, Talia corrected. And I won't stop until I get it. The remaining 4 hours of the flight were surreal. Talia, the billionaire owner, essentially worked as the flight attendant. She helped Sarah clear trays. She refilled waters. She sat with Fiona Hartley, talking her through her anxiety, learning that Fiona was flying to London to meet a sister she hadn't seen in 20 years. Talia arranged for a car to pick Fiona up at Heathrow, a small gesture, but one that made Fiona cry with gratitude. Meanwhile, inside the crew rest compartment at the back of the plane, Cassandra Price sat in the dark. She wasn't sorry, not yet. She was angry. She was convinced this was a setup. How was I supposed to know? She thought furiously. She looked like a bum. It's entrapment. She was drafting a mental statement for her union rep. She would claim Talia was aggressive, that Talia had threatened the safety of the flight, that the slap was a reflex to being cornered. It was her word against Talia's. She didn't know about the video. Back in Sovereign class, Talia was conducting an interview. She had pulled up Sarah's employee file on her laptop. "Sarah," Talia asked, "how long have you flown with Cassandra?" "6 months, ma'am," Sarah said, standing at attention in the galley. "Has she done this before?" Sarah hesitated. She looked at the floor. "Sarah," Talia said, "you have amnesty. Nothing you say will be used against you, but if you lie to me, I cannot protect you." Sarah took a shaky breath. "Yes, she targets people, usually economy passengers. She calls them cattle. But last month there was an Indian family in business class. She spilled coffee on the father, on purpose. She laughed about it in the galley, said he didn't look like he belonged in the seat." Talia's fingers flew across the keyboard, recording every word. "Did you report it?" "I wanted to," Sarah cried. "But the last girl who reported Cassie got transferred to the red-eye domestic routes. Cassie is friends with the regional manager. They go to brunch together. She's untouchable." "No one is untouchable," Talia said. "Who is the regional manager?" "David Sterling." Talia typed the name. David Sterling, VP of In-Flight Services. She opened a new email window. To Legal Department, HR Director. From Talia Monroe. Subject, immediate suspension. Pending investigation, David Sterling. "Thank you, Sarah," Talia said. "You've been very brave." "What's going to happen when we land?" Sarah asked fearfully. "The police will be waiting," Talia said. "For Cassandra, for you, a promotion. I need a new chief purser for the return leg." Sarah's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a junior." "You have empathy," Talia said. "You can teach skills. You can't teach kindness. You're in charge." The intercom chimed. "Cabin crew, prepare for landing," Captain Kingsley's voice announced. "We will be on the ground in London in 20 minutes. Talia packed up her laptop. She went to the lavatory and looked in the mirror. Her cheek was swollen, a dark bruise forming. It looked bad. She didn't try to cover it with makeup. She wanted the world to see it. She adjusted her hoodie. She was ready. As the plane descended through the gray London clouds, Talia looked out the window. She saw the sprawling city below, the Thames winding like a silver ribbon. She thought about the power dynamics of the world, how easy it was for people like Cassandra to punch down, assuming there would be no consequences. How easy it was to judge a book by its cover. But the book was about to close on Cassandra Price, and a new chapter was starting for Royal Vanguard. The wheels touched the tarmac with a screech of rubber. The plane taxied to a remote stand, not a regular gate. Talia had radioed ahead. Looking out the window, she saw 3 black police vans and a sleek Mercedes S-Class waiting on the tarmac. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Kingsley said, his voice grave, "please remain seated. We have police authorities boarding the aircraft to deal with a security incident. Please stay calm." Edward Langford looked out the window and gulped. "Is that Scotland Yard?" Talia unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood up. "It's time," she said to Narcus. "After you, boss," Narcus said, gesturing to the aisle. Talia walked to the door. She didn't wait for the jet bridge. The stairs were rolled up. The door opened. The cold London air rushed in. 2 officers climbed the stairs, followed by a woman in a sharp suit, Talia's London-based legal counsel. Ms. Monroe, the lawyer said, looking horrified at Talia's face. My God, are you all right? I'm fine, Talia said. The assailant is in the rear crew rest. The witness video is being airdropped to you now. I want her charged with assault and battery, and I want a press release drafted within the hour. Understood. And one more thing, Talia said, looking back into the cabin where Cassandra was being led out in handcuffs, kicking and screaming. Make sure the press knows, Talia whispered, that she slapped the owner. The video hit the internet before Cassandra Price was even processed at the Heathrow police station. Narcus Ravensdale had kept his word. He hadn't just sent it to CNN. He had uploaded the raw, unedited footage to Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, with the caption, Royal Vanguard purser assaults passenger for asking for water. She didn't know the passenger owns the airline. Watch the end. By the time the sun rose over London, the video had 50 million views. The world watched in high-definition horror as Cassandra sneered, screamed, and finally delivered the slap that would end her career. They watched the sickening impact. They heard the gasps, and then the coup de grace. Talia Monroe, calm amidst the chaos, producing the black titanium card and revealing her identity. The internet reaction was nuclear. Yaker boycott Royal Vanguard was trending worldwide. Got justice for Talia was the #1 topic in the US and UK. TikTok sleuths had already found Cassandra's old social media posts, which were riddled with subtle biases and complaints about certain types of passengers. Her carefully curated image as a glamorous flight attendant was dismantled in hours. Inside the interrogation room at the airport precinct, Cassandra sat in stunned silence. She had been stripped of her uniform, now wearing a gray tracksuit provided by the police. The reality of her situation was crashing down on her like a collapsing building. Her union representative, a tired-looking man named Gary, entered the room. He didn't look happy. Cassandra, he said, sitting down and not opening his briefcase, I've seen the video. It doesn't show the whole story, Cassandra cried, her voice cracking. She provoked me. She was aggressive. She touched me first. The video is 4K, Cassandra, Gary said flatly. It shows you cornering her. It shows you poking her. It shows her brushing your hand away in self-defense. And then it shows you assaulting her. There is audio. You called her trash. You told her she didn't belong. I was stressed. It was a long flight. You slapped a billionaire, Gary said, shaking his head in disbelief. Not just a billionaire. You slapped your boss. The woman who owns the company you work for. Do you understand the magnitude of this? Can you get me out? I have a shift on Thursday. Gary laughed, a harsh, dry sound. Cassandra, you don't have a shift on Thursday. You don't have a job. Royal Vanguard fired you for gross misconduct 20 minutes ago. They waived the hearing. They are distancing themselves from you so fast they're breaking the sound barrier. They can't do that. I have tenure. You committed a violent crime on camera, Gary said, standing up. The union isn't going to fight this. We can't defend assault. We're cutting you loose. What? Cassandra stood up, panic seizing her chest. You're supposed to protect me. We protect professionals, Gary said, walking to the door. Not liabilities. You're on your own, Cassie. Get a public defender. The door slammed shut. Cassandra was alone. For the first time in her life, her looks, her charm, and her connections couldn't save her. She sank into the plastic chair and wept, not for what she had done, but for what she had lost. While Cassandra was crying in a cell, the atmosphere in the London headquarters of Royal Vanguard Airways was suffocating. In the executive boardroom, David Sterling, the VP of In-Flight Services, was pacing nervously. He was on the phone with a crisis management firm, sweating through his Egyptian cotton shirt. It's just a viral clip. It lacks context, David shouted into his phone. We can spin this. We say the passenger was intoxicated. We say the attendant felt threatened. What do you mean the passenger is the owner? I know that. But the public doesn't know her character. The double doors swung open with a force that rattled the windows. Talia Monroe entered. She hadn't slept. The bruise on her cheek had bloomed into a nasty violet welt that distorted the left side of her face. Her PR team had begged her to cover it with heavy concealer or wear dark sunglasses. She had refused. She wanted them to see it. She wore a sharp, severe black power suit that seemed to absorb the light in the room. Behind her walked 2 large security guards and her personal legal counsel. The room fell into a deathly silence. David Sterling slowly lowered his phone, ending the call without saying goodbye. Talia didn't sit. She walked to the head of the mahogany table, placing her hands flat on the surface. She looked at each of the 12 men sitting there, men who had run this airline as an old boys' club for decades. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice cool, controlled, and terrifyingly quiet. "I assume you have seen the footage?" "Ms. Monroe," David Sterling spoke up, his voice trembling slightly as he tried to regain his composure. He put on his best sympathetic smile, the one he used for angry shareholders. "First, let me express our deepest, most sincere apologies. What happened to you was unacceptable. A tragedy. We have already terminated the employee in question. It was an isolated incident, a rogue element who slipped through the cracks." "Stop," Talia said. The word was like a whip crack. She signaled to her lawyer, who connected a laptop to the main projector. A graph appeared on the screen behind her, a jagged red line spiking upward. "This is not an isolated incident, David," Talia said, pointing at the screen without looking at it. "This is a graph of customer complaints regarding discrimination, racial bias, and elitism over the last 5 years. They have risen 300% under your tenure." The slide changed. It was a list of names and dates. "And here," Talia continued, her voice dropping an octave, "are 15 separate reports filed against Cassandra Price. 15. Harassment of elderly passengers, neglect of duty, verbal abuse of non-English speakers, spilling drinks on passengers she deemed low value." She turned her eyes to David, who was now pale and sweating profusely. "Every single one of these reports was dismissed. By you, David." I receive hundreds of reports a week, Ms. Monroe," David stammered, loosening his tie. "It's hard to vet them all personally. Cassandra was a top performer in duty-free sales. She brought in $50,000 a month in champagne revenue." "She was a bully," Talia cut in, leaning forward. "And you enabled her because she sold expensive perfume and flattered your ego. You created a culture where revenue was valued over human dignity. You built a system where a flight attendant felt comfortable slapping a black woman in the face because she didn't like her hoodie." Talia straightened up. "That culture ends today. We are retraining every single crew member. We are rewriting the service protocols. Sovereign class is not a private club for the elite to abuse the staff, nor is it a hunting ground for the staff to abuse passengers." She pointed a finger at the door. "David Sterling, you are fired. Effective immediately." David stood up, his face flushing a deep, angry red. "You can't do this! I have a contract! I have tenure! The board won't allow—" "I am the board," Talia said, her voice ringing with absolute power. "And I've read your contract. Clause 14, Section B. Gross negligence resulting in severe reputational damage to the company." She gestured to the TV screen in the corner, which was playing CNN on mute. The headline read, "Airline Billionaire Assaulted Midair." "You just cost us $50 million in market cap overnight, David. You're lucky I don't sue you for personal damages." Talia nodded to the security guards. "Escort Mr. Sterling out. He is not to touch his computer. Mail him his personal effects." David looked around the room for support. "Bob? Michael? Are you going to let her do this?" The other executives looked down at their papers, studying the grain of the wood, praying they weren't next. No one spoke. As David was dragged out of the room, sputtering threats, the air in the room seemed to clear. Talia looked at the empty chair at the end of the table. "We have a lot of work to do. I'm bringing in a new VP of in-flight services." "Who?" the CFO asked nervously. We'll need to run a search firm. It could take months. No search firm, Talia said. I'm promoting from within. Sarah, the junior attendant from Flight 882. A junior attendant? The CFO looked horrified. Ms. Monroe, she has no management experience. She's nobody. She is the only person on that plane who showed empathy when the hierarchy collapsed, Talia said firmly. She knows what right and wrong look like. We can teach her Excel spreadsheets. We can teach her logistics. We cannot teach a moral compass. Sarah is the new VP. If you have a problem with that, you can join David in the parking lot. Silence. Good, Talia said. Now let's talk about the rebranding. 3 months later. The London Crown Court was packed to capacity. It wasn't often that an assault case garnered this much international media attention, but the Billionaire slap trial had become a symbol of a changing world. Cassandra Price stood in the dock. She looked like a ghost of her former self. The immaculately coiffed blonde hair was now dull and pulled back in a messy ponytail, her dark roots showing inches of growth. She had lost 20 pounds. Her designer suit had been replaced by a cheap, ill-fitting blouse from a high-street discount rack. The arrogance that had defined her existence was gone, replaced by a jittery, hollow terror. She had pleaded guilty. There was no point in fighting the video. The evidence was irrefutable. The judge, a stern woman with steel gray hair and no patience for theatrics, peered over her glasses at Cassandra. Ms. Price, the judge began, her voice echoing in the hush of the courtroom. You held a position of trust and authority at 35,000 feet, where passengers are vulnerable and dependent on the crew. You abused that position in the most vile way possible. Cassandra stared at her feet, trembling. You judged a passenger based on her appearance, the judge continued. You denied her basic human needs during a medical emergency. And when challenged, your response was not to de-escalate, but to resort to physical violence. That the victim turned out to be your employer is irrelevant to the crime, but it highlights your supreme arrogance. You thought you were punching down. You thought there would be no consequences. I'm sorry, Cassandra whispered, tears leaking from her eyes. I lost my temper. I'm so sorry. I believe you are sorry for the consequences, the judge said sharply, not for the action. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. I sentence you to 6 months in prison, suspended for 2 years. You are ordered to complete 200 hours of community service. You are also ordered to pay $5,000 in compensation to the victim, and you are placed on the violent and sex offender register for a period of 5 years. Cassandra collapsed into her chair, sobbing into her hands. But as she was led out of the courtroom, she realized the legal sentence was the least of her problems. The real punishment was her life. The hard karma Talia had promised was not a single event. It was a slow, agonizing suffocation of her existence. She was blacklisted from the aviation industry globally. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, had flagged her file with a do not hire red notice. She would never step foot on a plane as crew again. But it went deeper. A week after the trial, Cassandra tried to get a job as a receptionist at a high-end boutique in Mayfair. The interview was going well. She still knew how to charm. The manager was smiling, nodding. Then, he glanced at her CV again. Cassandra Price. Wait. He typed her name into his computer. His smile vanished instantly. He turned the screen to face her. It was a still image from the video, her face twisted in a sneer, hand raised to slap Talia. We don't hire liabilities, the manager said coldly. Please leave before I call security. She had lost her apartment in Chelsea, unable to pay the rent without her flight salary and duty-free commissions. She was currently sleeping on a futon in her sister's cramped flat in Croydon. Her sister, who had always envied Cassandra's glamorous life, now treated her with a mixture of pity and resentment. Her friends, The cool crowd she used to party with in Dubai and New York had abandoned her. They had blocked her on WhatsApp. They had unfollowed her on Instagram. Nobody wanted to be associated with the woman who slapped a black billionaire. She was social radioactive waste. After leaving the court, Cassandra tried to hail a cab to escape the paparazzi. It was pouring rain, a cold, miserable London drizzle. A black cab pulled over. Cassandra reached for the door handle, relief washing over her. The driver looked through the window. He recognized her instantly. His face hardened. "Not in my cab, love," he said. "Please," Cassandra begged, shivering. "I just want to go home." "My daughter saw that video," the driver spat. "She asked me why the lady was so mean. You're barred. Walk." He locked the doors and drove off, splashing a wave of dirty gutter water onto her legs. Cassandra stood in the rain, alone, soaked to the bone. She wiped the water from her eyes and looked up. Across the street, looming over the intersection, was a massive digital billboard. It was a new advertisement for Royal Vanguard Airways. The ad featured a diverse crew, smiling genuinely, serving passengers with warmth. And there, in the center of the image, was Sarah, the junior girl Cassandra used to bully and call Mouse. Sarah was wearing the chief purser uniform, looking radiant, confident, and powerful. She looked like a leader. The slogan faded in over Sarah's smiling face. Royal Vanguard, excellence for everyone. Cassandra watched the ad loop 3 times. The rain mixed with her tears. She realized then that she hadn't just lost a job. She had lost her place in the sky. She was grounded, permanently, stuck in the mud and the rain, while the people she had despised soared above her. She turned up her collar, put her head down, and started the long walk to the bus stop. The story of Flight 882 wasn't just a scandal, it was a revolution. Talia Monroe didn't just fix an airline, she sent a message that echoed through boardrooms and cabins around the world. Dignity is non-negotiable. Karma didn't just hit Cassandra Price. It completely dismantled her reality, proving that character is the only currency that matters in the end. The uniform doesn't make the person, the actions do. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold at 30,000 feet, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story about the powerful getting humbled and the good guys winning. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that you never know who you're talking to, so be kind to everyone. Thanks for watching.